the heck? What the heck? That was. Oh my god. That was a horrible way to end a game. That is a horrible way to end a hockey game. There's no other way to say it than that. That was terrible. Um, that's you cannot do that. Guess what? You can't sucker punch somebody to the back of their head with 30 seconds left. Think you're going to get away with it. Give the other team a power play plus the extra attacker from pulling the goalie, and think you're just going to survive that. Certainly not on a night where the officiating was questionable to begin with. Absolutely, absolutely terrible. It's just bad. I don't know. Throw out whatever synonym you want for bad. They all work on this one. I think it was absolutely brutal, but thank you for joining us, everybody, for ECH Postgame Live. It's going to be a therapy session tonight. I don't think it could be our normal overtime loss slam poetry event. I think this one's going to have to be a therapy session, like it's a full-on loss. Just that's my sense reading the room, taking a quick glance at the comments, seeing everybody in the game chat on the Discord server. That's how I'm feeling. But thank you for being here, everybody, for this post-game live presented by Queen Anne Beer Hall. As we all know, I'm sure might be a good night to head over there for the post-game, everybody, if you know what I mean. All right, I'm just going to jump into it because we can kind of get all these quick comments out of the way from all the Susie stuff. Penalties, too many of them. And what was Susie doing there? Cost us the game from Hunter. Coop, that basically F Carson Susie. All my friends hate Carson Susie. Gary, Susie's in the final year of his contract. If we're not in it, look for a possible trade for that. As we know, almost traded to the Oilers, to the point where the Oilers actually made some Carson Susie jerseys that some people found at their equipment sale this year. Let's see, like there's just that's SJ. I got home just in time to catch the last minute of regulation. I have regrets. Yeah, sorry about that one, SJ. That was not great. To only watch a minute or so of this game, probably not the minute that you'd want there. Michael, that's not on Susie. Dirty slash by Dubois. It is on Susie though if Susie's gonna wait a little bit to retaliate and then still retaliate during regulation. All right, because I understand this. He gets slashed. I understand where you're coming from. There's 30 seconds left. Like, this is hockey. Wait 30 seconds, and then you can go and beat the out of him, right? Like, we've seen that. That's what happens. Anything that happens late in a close game, you bottle it up, you get through, and the moment that last buzzer goes, all bets are off. The gloves go flying, everybody partners up, things get handled then. You don't try to handle it there. It's not the time for it. You just have to wait 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Ugh. Ugh. That's what it's about. It doesn't matter how egregious it was, that the refs missed it, how attacked you feel, how personal it felt, any of that stuff. You got to wait those 30 seconds. You just have to. It matters. And I know, thankfully, the Kraken were at least able to get the Gary Bettman loser point in overtime. That's big, because if you just lost 2 points on something like this, that would stink. That would absolutely suck. To at least get a point, that's something. But this was a night where everything was kind of stacked against you to begin with. You battled through it. You got to the point where Turbo's able to get that awesome goal, and then to go out there and do that and not be able to handle your stuff with 30 seconds left. It's on Susie. Not necessarily the whole loss, but that was on Susie, and that was a momentum changer that lasted from that moment all the way through to the overtime goal by the Jets. I just think it is. Got a couple super chats. I wasn't trying to ignore you guys with the super chats. Just wanted to get all that out first. CR Bud with the 2021 Kraken style L. Yeah, that one was brutal. Thanks for the super chat there. But Jules, scratch him and let Fleury play. Fleury's already playing because the Alexiak thing. I don't know how you handle this because you're already down a defenseman, right? That was, I just don't know, Jules. I don't know, but lots of people with the scratch him comments, and I totally understand it. It's a rough one. I saw somebody saying something about, bag skate him until he pukes. Like, I don't know. I think at some point it's just enough, like, for the player to know that they did that and that, you get yelled at the coach here, probably get yelled at by a teammate, and then it's, you kind of move on. That being said, we saw this with Carson Kuhlman, right? He makes one mistake on one PK and he's scratched for 4 games. So, granted, the forward situation very different. They have a lot more forwards to work with. Uh, especially right now because you have Alexiak out. But I'm trying to I don't know. It's gonna be a question for RJ. I don't know where they're at when it comes to defensive depth, uh, and how worked in their new seventh defenseman is and everything. So we'll definitely ask about it. But I understand where it's coming from, Jules, and thank you for the super chat as well. It's I don't even know. I don't even know. It's so bad. It was so bad. Oh man. Tyler, that's a tough point to swallow, not gonna lie. Should have gotten 2. Absolutely, Tyler. Nathan, brutal, absolutely brutal. Do you think that's enough that Fleury and Olofsson start against New York Rangers? Like I said, if Alexiak's healthy and it's just plugging in Cale Fleury, who's been with the club through all of training camp, through the preseason, and through the regular season so far, kind of getting the Borgen treatment, I absolutely think it is. I think Susie would be out and you would see Fleury in. The fact that you're already missing Alexiak and Olofsson's only been with you, up with the big club now for a couple days, I don't know that you do it. That being said, this was so egregious. I wouldn't be shocked if Hackstall did it, and I would understand if he did it. I wouldn't have a problem with it probably. But this is terrible. It was absolutely brutal. Mike McBob kind of echoing those sentiments there. Coop, I wonder if we've even covered 3v3 overtime yet in practice because so far after a year and a bit, it clearly looks like we haven't. I don't know. We'll ask RJ when he comes on how often they seem to practice that in practice. But yeah, 3v3 overtime. We're not exactly a team built for that. The whole kind of grind it out on the forecheck so you can activate your defense and the whole style of play and the whole system that the Kraken want to run. Kind of hard to do, and it's 3-on-3, and you just need to capitalize on having as much space as possible and rely on, ultra high skill forwards, right? Being an expansion team doesn't lend you to having the kinds of players that are, naturally better in the 3v3 overtime. Obviously, bringing in guys like Bjorkstrand, Burakovsky, I feel like they're better for that kind of thing. But I still just don't even know if the roster construction totally supports the idea of, hey, let's just fight to get to overtime and then maybe we can make something happen. I don't feel like that's this team. This is more of a, hey, let's see if we could scrape together a 1-goal lead and then we'll survive till the end, which is what they were doing. And they were somehow doing a good job because it already looked like Winnipeg was on a power play before the whole Carson Soucy incident happens. And yeah, it just I don't even know. The thing I'm worried about now is you didn't look like yourselves back on, I'm spacing on what day it is. Today's Sunday, back on Friday, right? You didn't look like yourselves on Friday in that 1-0 loss to the Wild, but it was also like, you know what? It's all right. Team was playing good. Things were just a little whatever. It's fine. It happens, right? All good things must come to an end, as we've said on that post game. You then come back out in this one. You've reshuffled the lines, and guess what? The mojo's kind of back. Everything's working. It's all fine. It wasn't like an overreaction shuffling to one bad game. Things looked pretty good, and we'll talk about that later on, I'm sure. But you deal with the reshuffling, and I think that's kind of why we saw the one too many men penalty early on, and then obviously if you're listening to the Root Sports broadcast, Eddie was talking about one that was almost called that the Kraken barely survived there. I think that's the result of that. But you battle through an officiating crew that did not have a good game. They called stuff that wasn't penalties. They didn't call things that were penalties. They absolutely did not handle the whole Burakovsky hit on Schmidt, I believe it was, and how all that went down and devolved into that big pile of bodies, all throwing hands. That was all on the refs and the linesmen that just didn't handle it right. So you're already dealing with all that stuff. You're already dealing with the fact that up until that point, Winnipeg's only goal was off of a power play that shouldn't have been called on Larson just stick lifting. An amazing play by Larson. We highlighted him in the last game, how he was able to come back on breakaways and manage to not take penalties, but stop the breakaways. That is a skill that you cannot teach. That is just someone who is so skilled and the game is slowed down so much for them because they've played so much hockey that they can see it and they know what they're looking at and how to pull something like that off. And here he goes and he does it again. But you call the penalty for the slash, even though he doesn't make contact with the hands at all. It's like, all right. And that's how Winnipeg gets their only goal at that point, right? So that to do all of that, to work through all of that and be in a position to win this game with 30 seconds to go. Devastating. Absolutely devastating. Like I said, I don't care what happened to you. You got to just you swallow it for 30 seconds and then you do whatever you want after that. That's the way hockey is. That's the way the NHL has been my entire life, the entire time I've watched hockey, and I know it was like that well before that as well. And yeah, Carson Soucy just needs to know better in that situation. And I don't know. I worry that momentum swing. We obviously saw what it did for the rest of this game. I worry about that momentum swing going forward because all that other stuff was survivable. The Minnesota game survivable. If you just lost this game in regulation because you just lost it in regulation or overtime, right? Fine. It's whatever. Maybe you got outplayed. This one, this is hard and that's going to stick with you and it's going to lead to all of these questions that now the team's going to have to deal with. I guarantee you right now, those post-game interviews, everybody's in there asking them what happened, how'd you feel, what was going through your mind there, what happened, and those players are like, I don't want to have to be answering this question. I shouldn't have to be answering this question, right? That's what's going through all their minds, and that energy, that emotion from is going to stick with them. And it's going to stick with Hackstall, who now has to go and try to make, he's got to talk to the team. He's got to talk with Carson Soucy. He's got to figure out if he wants to do something to send a message, what he can do given the Alexiak injury. This is just created so much that didn't need to be there. And that's going to have ramifications beyond just this one game. And that's what worries me. And that's ultimately what pisses me off the most, is that I know this is not going to be the last time that we're going to hear of it or think about this game. It's not just like a normal overtime loss where it's like, well, we got a point, we can, keep it going. That's not going to happen after this. And I'm upset by that. I am. I'm not gonna lie, I'm upset with that, right? I mean, what me and RJ recording deep dive tomorrow morning. Guess what we'll be talking about? It's gonna be this. So, all right. Try not to linger on it too much. I apologize for letting chat just go crazy here for a very, very long time. But yeah, it was brutal and it needed to be talked about. I think I needed to get that out. Super chat here from Bert Krim. Shot the freaking puck. They don't have any world-class finishers and they need to be basic. Shoot to the pads, play the rebounds, shoot the puck. Yeah, I 1000% agree. And there was that Matty Beniers moment, like 13-ish minutes left in the third, I think, where, and they highlighted it. Eddie did a good job highlighting that one, where Beniers picks up a loose puck. It's there, and he's got a look. Like there's a defenseman in the way that might block that. Goaltender's aware of where you're at with the puck. He's paying attention. It's not the best look in the world, but it's still a good look. And instead of shooting, Matty just throws it back across the ice to the other side of the zone where he's got, I believe it was Schwartz, who's all tangled up with somebody, and the puck just kind of sails away and you lose possession. You didn't even keep possession. Like if Matty's not going to shoot there to try to go for a rebound, despite having two guys kind of net front there for a rebound, at least hold on to it. Skate around. There's nobody pressuring you. You didn't have to make a play quickly, right? There, he had a good, probably 10 feet in all directions before the next Winnipeg Jet player. Just hold on to it. If you don't feel comfortable taking that shot, you don't think it's as good a look as it seemed like it was, just hold on to it. Continue the possession, skate around, let guys move around, get it behind the defense. Got to do it. Just got to do it. It's this is the way it is. All right. Let's see. We were a better team, just lost it in the last 30 seconds. Thanks to certain guys. I mean, they played a good game despite everything. Let's see. Refs screwed us. I mean, look, the refs, it was a bad game for the refs all the way around. Like I said, that Larson penalty, bad call there. There was nothing there to call, and they called it, and it cost us a goal. And then the handling of the Burakovsky thing was just a mess. Like, you got to get in there and deal with it. You just do. That's your job. You got to go in there and deal with that. No way around that. Let's see. I'm trying to skip some of the Susie stuff just because we spent a bunch of time on it, and I know we're gonna spend more time on it when RJ gets here. And I don't want the whole hour to just be talking about it. So forgive me if I kind of go through here. Gary, we all need hugs tonight. I very much agree with that. Afra, you feel like making an appearance real quick here? Get some dog squay therapy dog action. Come here. Come on up here. I got your treat bag. Get some treats. Let's see. At least Olofsson played well. Yeah, he did play well. Like it just, I don't know. It was only 10 minutes. It was kind of like with Fleury last game. Barely noticed him. It was just he was just there. I don't know that you can play both Fleury and Olofsson when you don't trust them enough to give them full minutes. That's the problem, right? What do you do in that situation? Um, Let's see. Edzo said he's sure Susie will learn from this. How does he not already know not to do that? From Sean. I agree with you. I feel like he should probably already know not to do that. It's the way it is. Because I know Michael's in here defending Susie a little bit here, saying it's not a sucker punch. Baseball swings at Susie's legs are okay now. I'm not saying that the slash was okay from Dubois. I'm saying that you have to have situational awareness. And I'm sorry, he hit him in the back of the head. If that's not a sucker punch, I don't know what else is. Right? Like he punched him in the back of the head. You just can't do that. You gotta be aware of the situation. There's 30 seconds left. Like I said, it's hockey. You bottle that up and you save it for 30 seconds later for the final buzzer, and then everybody goes at it. We've seen that from like 4 games from the Kraken already this season, where everything kind of pops off right after the whistle. Everybody gets it out and you move forward. That's why hockey allows fighting to begin with. It's to give people that way out, that way to let off steam, to feel like they got it out of their system, that justice was served, whatever it is. That's literally why this is the only sport that still allows fighting, is for that reason. But you don't take a bad penalty. You know what I mean? Like you wait to then fight later. You don't take a bad penalty there. I don't think that there's really a good excuse for it. X Kid Z, is the hockey guy curse a real thing? I didn't. Is that a thing? Like, if that's a thing, then it sure seems like it is right now. Um, that's interesting. I didn't know about that. Um, Dominic, do we know what happened before Susie hit him? Yeah, he got slashed by Dubois. It was it's a kind of a hockey play. Let's see. Greg, where have McCann, Beniers, and Bjorkstrand been on the offensive side? They're pretty much invisible lately. Certainly not on the score sheet. Now, McCann at least has the excuse, if you want to call it that, of being injured and being out for a week or so with that lower body injury. That's kind of where McCann's been. I felt like he was back last game. This was the first game where McCann looked like McCann. He had that wicked laser of a shot on the power play. I can't believe it didn't go in. It was one of the many Kraken shots that hit a post or crossbar tonight. I think that deserves to be talked about. But so that's where McCann's been. I think he's just kind of coming back, and he looked like himself for the first time in this game. With Bjorkstrand has been all over the offensive zone. Back when he was on the line with Wenberg and Burakovsky, he was all over the place. He was getting tons of shots. I mean, he's taken a ton of shots. I don't know where he's at. I don't have my laptop here with me. I do. It's dead. That's the lie. I'm trying to, let me pull up Hockey Reference right now, because I got to think Bjorkstrand is in their top 3 as far as taking shots. It's just he's stuck on that one goal from the first game of the season, second game of the season. Like, it was really early on in the season, and he's just been snake bitten. And there's just no, I don't know what else to say about it. Oliver Bjorkstrand is first on the team in shots with 52. Next up, Burakovsky at 39. So he's got a 13 shot advantage over anyone else on this team when it comes to actually shooting the puck, which, as we know as Kraken fans, is something we want them to do as much as possible. He's doing it as much as possible. He's just had horrible luck, because you've got 1 goal on 52 shots. That's a 1.9% shooting percentage, which is, I'm going to safely say, is below his career average, if I had to guess, as I pull it up here. His career average is 11.5, but it was 12.0 before he came to the Kraken. This has just really dragged it down a lot there. So he's just having horrible luck when it comes to scoring goals. Think Donskoy last year. Like, it's literally gotten to that levels. When you're team leader in shots with 13 more shots than anybody else, only has the 1 goal through 16 games now, it's just bad luck, and it's just what it is. Beniers, he's been focusing on other things. He's been the guy, the center that's back checking the most. He's playing the deepest in the defensive zone. There's a lot of times where I feel like he's getting kind of messed up just because, this goes back to the scouting report I did on him before the Kraken ever drafted him. This dude's got a motor and he's got stamina like nobody else. This guy could take a 3-minute shift if you absolutely needed him to, and he'd somehow find a way to have energy through the whole thing of it. And so I think a lot of times what happens is he'll be out there, they'll drive possession in the offensive zone, transition game will come back. He back checks hard all the way with that transition, through that transition, and then they'll get the puck. He'll dig out the puck, something, right? He'll make his way up the ice back towards the offensive zone. Everybody else is on a line change because they've been out there for like a minute 15 sometimes, right? And then he hits the offensive zone and he's all alone, and he's gonna kind of just dump the puck in and go for a change himself. And so I think that's kind of been the situation with Beniers, is that there's a lot of times where he's starting to get looks at offense, but it's so late in shifts that everybody else is on a line change. He's just not even thinking about it because he's just this magical person who can go forever without ever needing to stop and breathe. That's something that I've noticed from Beniers. Otherwise, stuff like we already talked about. Got to shoot the puck when you had a look like that. You just kind of have to. It's the way it is. So I think that's part of it. Let's see. 2 penalties in the last 5 minutes. I could feel the loss coming in slow motion before it even happened. I know, but you survived the first one. It was okay. I don't know. It was brutal. Oh, so brutal. This game was a kick in the you-know-whats. Can't we nominate the Jets as a playoff opponent when we get in? If RJ had his way, we could. Playoff teams can choose their opponents. Coop, I hate that second period crossbar. Brutal tonight. Brutal. Like I said, I think there was 3 that was really bad. Let's see. Looking on scouting the refs, told the whole story. The old guy had control of who was going to win that. Like 40% of the time, the home team wins. It's from Walt. Interesting. So maybe there's something there. I don't think that's always the best case, true as far as them favoring one team versus the other, but it wasn't a good game. Like, I don't think anybody would say that was a well-refed game. Alex, my sources tell me the beverages at Queen Anne play the full 60. Yeah, they do. Very good, Alex. I like that one. Gonna have to steal that one for later. Let's see. Gotta wait till Thursday for the next game. I know that is brutal, Autumn. But let me tell you, got deep dive tomorrow. Got for Patreon members, got the Prospect live chat this upcoming Wednesday. I'll send out a reminder on Patreon tomorrow. And then also we are recording with a very, very, very special guest tomorrow. The next Release the Fans episode. I don't know exactly when we're going to drop it this week just because we have so much other stuff going on. But we're going to make sure there's plenty of content for people while we all wait till Thursday for that game. So just want to get that one out there. Michael Burakovsky stick handling through traffic, then coasting back to the net on the winner. It takes a lot out of you 3-on-3. Generally, that's the way everybody plays 3-on-3. So I'm not going to totally get on Burakovsky there. But yeah, it is what it is. 3-on-3, you kind of have to think you're going to score. That's one of the things. There is no team game 3-on-3. And I think that's something that we can say. We can kind of now know all these years into the 3-on-3 experiment as the overtime is the teams that I've seen that are good at overtime at 3-on-3 are the teams that they just go for it. You've got a Cale Makar who's just going to go for it. And, maybe only 25% of the time it works, but he's got to go for it. And the other players on the ice understand that. Or Toronto, they have their guys just go for it. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, they're just going for it 100%. Doesn't matter if they miss it and the puck, it's an odd man rush going the other way. You just take that chance when you have to. And so I think Burakovsky picked that up probably from being in Colorado. And then that's not really what goes on in Seattle. So everybody else was kind of going up with Burakovsky to see what he's doing, try to play a team game. And then Burakovsky's just trying to score it all on himself because that's what he was used to in that situation. And then the Kraken are unprepared for things going back the other way when that doesn't work. That is his guess. I do not know that is for sure. I'd love to ask RJ that question, but that's the feeling I got is that There are some teams that have clearly made that decision, and I think personally it's the right decision in 3-on-3, where it's just if your guy feels like he's got a look, or he can create one, you absolutely go for that, and you just say, yes, we'll take the odd man rush going the other way. We'll try to deal with it there. You tell your defenseman, hey, be aware of that, play back, play conservative, and then you deal with that. But again, we'll ask RJ when he gets here. Got another super chat. Let me come down here for it from Jules. Positive. Jones, Tanziv, and Gord did their jobs. Yes. Jones, another fantastic game from Martin Jones. That pad save he made in, was it the second, where it was kind of crossing the line? He's able to save it before it totally crosses the line. That one was incredible. He battled through a lot today. He really did. There was lots of clean looks that the Jets were getting that he was able just to get his stick on, even like twice. I noticed some really nice stick saves from him. Love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. Jones has really saved this season for the Kraken through the goaltending injuries. He's kept them in games where they've needed him to, or he's made sure that they've picked up wins when they've needed to pick up wins. Just can't stop saying enough good things about Jones. Tanev, 2 games of the last week or so where he's just kind of come up big in the third period. That energy, that fact that in the third period, when the team has been playing hockey for 50 minutes, just don't want to deal with a guy like Brandon Tanev. He's going to come in there with the stamina, with the wheels, try to make something happen, right? Just don't want to deal with somebody like that. And we're seeing he catches them a little tired. He's able to make certain moves on them that they can't keep up with because they're just not mentally fresh enough to keep going at that level and match his intensity. And that's what I love about Brandon Tanev. That's what I loved about Brandon Tanev back when he was with Pittsburgh. I think that's what everybody in Winnipeg would say they love about Brandon Tanev. And so I just love that that's the style of player that he is. And then Gord, yeah, doesn't matter who's on his line. He's just going to keep things moving, do his thing, and that's the way it is. And he, again, just so happy to have somebody like that who's so stable and solid and reliable. It's Yanni Gord, and Tampa misses it. I'm telling you, they do. Thanks for the super chat there, Jules. RJ is ready to join us, so lots of stuff we'll talk about with him, I am sure. Let me go ahead and bring him in here real quick. We'll be right back. All right, RJ, thanks for joining us for this one. Got to imagine it wasn't the most pleasant of post-game interview sessions out there for you. I guess let's just start with your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, discipline was an issue for the Kraken tonight. I think this was kind of an up and down game. The first period, they looked very much like the team that had won 5 games in a row. And, it seemed like they had gotten back to their game. Second period looked very much like they did in their last game against Minnesota, a little sloppy at times and just not really driving the play. And it looked like they had turned everything around in the third. And then, I mean, we all saw what happened at the end there on just a really, really tough penalty to take. And that was kind of the subject of conversation, in most of the presser after the game. And I mean, understandably so. And I mean, the players were a little bit kind of as far as, what to do there. Brandon Tanev, huh?
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Yeah, you roboted there for a second. So
okay, you got me back.
Yeah, you're back.
So Brandon Tanev, he called the game a battle, and it certainly was. I mean, we all kind of saw that. From Jordan Eberle, they still have you here? Okay.
Yeah.
And then from Jordan, we got Jordan Eberle next, and I just kind of point blank asked him, like, how do you manage that balance between being engaged in that battle, as Tanev called it, and being disciplined? And what stood out most to me from his answer was, he just kind of ran out of words, and he just said, it's just using your head. I mean, I think that pretty much summed it up. It's just using your head at the end of the day. And so, just discipline is an area they knew they needed to be better at. Dave Haxtell, had an interesting quote at the end on that penalty. He called it an undisciplined penalty, which I think it certainly was. He said that's the part of it that we can control. And so that's what they're going to focus on. But he said there, the other part of it, he's not sure why that play was blown down when it was, if both guys weren't going to the box. And that, that's something that kind of confused him about it. And he said, I'll have to go back and take a look at it. But ultimately, he said 30 seconds left in the game. That's not the time to settle scores. You need to just close that game out.
Yeah, that's kind of been my big takeaway is, I understand he was slashed. Like, I get it. But with 30 seconds left, you suck it up for 30 seconds. And the moment that final buzzer goes, this is hockey, you can go and take care of it. Go let him know what you think, however you want to do so, just about, right? That's the way this normally goes down. You don't sucker punch someone to the back of the head. Like, that's just not what you do. And that's it's something that they can very much control. And we saw the impact that it had on overall momentum moving forward. I do think that, yes, things like with that, how it was blown dead, there was definitely officiating struggles in this one, we'll call it, right? Like the Larson penalty that leads to the first Winnipeg goal, not a penalty, just Larson making a good play. There was issues like that. The whole other situation. The thing that I'm worried about, RJ, is that we saw how this affected momentum through the rest of the game. I'm worried about the hangover effect moving forward from this too, because it was something that is controllable, and it was one of your guys who just made a really, really bad decision. And the fact that everybody had to address it when talking with the media afterwards, right? It's going to hang around. It's going to be what's talked about on all the podcasts this week and everything, right? Like it's not going to be something that can just go away. It's not like, oh, we just lost a game in overtime, we can kind of move on past that. This is going to be around for a while, and I just don't want it to hopefully snowball too bad for them.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the fact that that tomorrow is a CBA mandated day off might actually help kind of just clear everyone's head. You don't have to worry about practice or anything. And you kind of sense that also from the end of Tanev's presser too. I think he said multiple times, we just want to move on. We just want to move on. You got to move on. And I think that's kind of where the team's mindset should be. And hopefully they're able to do that. But it's just so tough to do that.
It is. And then the other thing that a lot of people have been asking is, do you do something like scratch Susie out of this, right? But that's complicated with the whole Jamie Alexiak injury and situation you've got going on right now.
I don't think you can do it.
Yeah, Olofsson comes in and plays tonight, but only plays 10 minutes, right? Cale Fleury didn't play a full regular, amount of minutes last game. I don't think you can do that either. And so I think that's one of the things going on. Got a super chat here. Sorry, Duthin, for not getting to it sooner. Just letting RJ finish up everything there. Pouring one out for Jones, who deserved more discipline and a win. Absolutely. Another fantastic game from Martin Jones in this one.
Yeah, and Dave Haxtell said we wasted a great game from Jones. He used that word. We wasted the game. And he had a fantastic effort. The kind of game, especially in the second period, the Kraken really had no business, still, being tied at the end of the second, honestly, given some of the chances they gave up. But Martin Jones was just solid, as he has been for several games now. And the Kraken just need to do better. I feel like they've owed him more each of the last two games.
Yeah, no, they really do. The other thing that was talked about a lot, and that I said, we kind of ask and talk about it more once you joined, was the 3-on-3. So first question people have is, do the Kraken practice 3-on-3 all that often? No,
I've only seen them practice it once or twice at training camp, and not at all during the regular season. So there's your answer. And I do support that decision, by the way. I think there's other parts of the game that you just play a lot more often.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree with that too. The other thing was the idea that Burakovsky might have tried to take on a little bit too much all on his own, tried to play the hero a little bit there. Uh, do you want to go first? I gave my thoughts right before you joined.
Okay, sure. Yeah, no, I'll go ahead. I mean, on that play, and I was looking around because, Dylan, the way you and I will tend to watch hockey, you look at where the next play is, where he can go with that puck. And he didn't really have much, at least to my eye in my quick glance. And so at that point, as a player in 3-on-3, what you can choose to do is try and make a move through somebody and try and kind of make it happen on your own. Or you can circle back, regroup, maybe even get a line change, and just settle back in. And it can be difficult for a player to make that second choice, even when it is very often the best choice to make at 3-on-3. It's kind of this, the coaching almost ruining the 3-on-3, where the best thing you can do is just circle the puck around for a long time, wear the opponents out. The smart thing to do is rarely trying to make that individual play on your own. But a player like Burakovsky, obviously very confident in his abilities, as he should be, tries to make that play on his own. It doesn't work out. It ends up in the back of their net.
Yeah, that looked like a player coming from Colorado, because I was saying before you joined, I think the teams that are better in 3-on-3 are the teams that tell their super high skilled players, right? The players who can handle the idea of trying to work on their own in a 3-on-3 situation where there's lots of time and space, but you might not, but you can't really like have a whole team effort really in 3-on-3 because you just don't have as many pieces to work with, right? That's what the Kraken, all their offense is built around utilizing all 5 people. It's impossible to do in this situation. But I was saying, I think all the teams that really handle 3-on-3 well, they let their superstars, they let their highest skilled players just go for it. Just absolutely go for it. Try to make that play. 25% of the time it'll work out, and the other 75% of the time just have your other guys play back. When they recognize that that's what's happening, those other 2 players got to get passive, right? Let them handle that. Let them, and that way the worst case scenario is a 3-on-2 coming back at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what the Kraken need to do there. I know that's what Colorado does because I've seen them in 3-on-3. They'll let just the McKinnon go. They'll let Nichushkin go. They'll let Makar go. They let all those guys go. And then the rest of the team adjusts when they see that happening. And I felt like that's what Burakovsky did here. And the Kraken weren't good at reading at what was happening and then being able to get back and kind of support that strategy.
Yeah, you're thinking, oh, okay, Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon are going to be back there. They got me covered. Well, that's not really the case anymore.
No, not quite. Got another super chat here from JMG. Does Jones remain the #1 starter when Grubauer comes back? This probably going to be a kind of a fun thing we can bring up on the podcast tomorrow as well. But it is creating an interesting situation for the Kraken and Dave Haxtell because Jones has been lights out. Like he just hasn't had a bad game.
No, he hasn't. There's been no reason not to play him, and especially given the way the games are spaced out, they should be able to continue to give him starts. Just about every game. So I think as long as he keeps playing like this, you have to keep starting him. I mean, he's the goalie that gives you the best chance to win the way that he's playing. So we'll have to see. I still think Grubauer is a little ways away from coming back. Yes, we did see him on the ice this morning, but he wasn't taking shots regularly with the team in the 2 drills. He didn't rotate into the net. Either the starter or the backup's net. So it did look like he was still being very cautious with that injury, as he should be. That can be a dicey one. But I think you're going to have to continue to play the hot hand. And this is something we've seen from the Kraken all season, and it's largely worked out. You're putting in the lineup that is playing the best right now and gives you the best chance to win right now. We've seen it kind of with the Shane Wright situation playing out. We've seen it, in a couple other areas. Cale Fleury had one game that maybe wasn't the best, and boom, Gustav Olofsson is in the lineup. You give him a shot. So I think that's just kind of Hackstall's MO right now.
Yeah, I think it is, and we'll talk more about the lines and stuff here in just a second. Just wanted to get this one in here because she was promised just a little bit earlier.
Oh yes,
get Afra in, get the treats for Dogskoy. Just because that was a rough one. It was a rough one, and we need the therapy dog here with us.
Oh yes.
So Sean, I talked a little bit about it earlier. Sean's bringing it up here at the comments. I didn't really see much come from the forward line shakeup Haxtell put out tonight. Any thoughts on whether they'll go back or stick with it?
I think they'll stick with it for at least another game. And what tells me that is Hackstall's answer when he was asked about it after the game. So, what'd you think of the new look forward lines? He's like, we barely saw it. Like, we didn't even really see him. We had like 20 minutes of special teams play. We could not get into a rhythm there. And so, I just think we'll see it for at least another game, just because I don't feel like Hackstall got the sample size he wanted tonight.
Right. And I think, I think they actually did do okay. Like, I was kind of impressed with how they handled 5-on-5.
Especially the Gord Tanev Bjorkstrand line. Yes. I really liked what I saw from them.
Right. And so I think it's okay. And this is partly because they have such a solid foundation and system. All 4 lines play the same style. They're all supposed to do the same thing. Whether you're the left wing on the first line or the fourth line, the job's the same. And credit to the coaching staff for devising a system in which all 4 lines can play it, right? It's not like something that demands a certain skill level. And it's so productive, right? Because then you want your high skill players also to play it as well as your fourth line players, right? But the style that they've been playing, the overall team centric game that they've been playing, all of that stuff, it's working and it's a good system. And so I think it allows them the flexibility to move things around like this. We all know the Kraken really kind of struggled in that Wild game. They never got things going. I understand the idea of, hey, let's shake it up a little bit, keep things fresh, keep everybody on their toes, wake them up after that, right? I think it's okay. And I thought that they did a good job. It still felt like, through all the 5-on-5 stuff, which I know there wasn't a lot of, it felt like they were still, all 4 lines were driving possession. They were in charge of the game through most of it.
Yeah. And you're right. It didn't feel like a major shakeup. And funny enough, that's exactly what Dave Hackstall said this morning when I think there was a question that involved the word, shaking up the lines. Or well, it's not really a shakeup. He made sure to downplay it. We're switching one winger on the 3 lines. And it's more or less the same look. We're just trying to get a spark there. And in a game, after a game where you're shut out, trying to find a spark at forward is probably not the worst thing to do. So I think it looked kind of as Hackstall kind of said it would.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about this earlier because obviously Bjorkstrand, one of those guys, moved around there. Do you know what Bjorkstrand's shooting right now? His shooting percentage is?
What, like 3%?
1.9. Bjorkstrand leads the team in shots with 52. Next highest is Burakovsky at 39.
Yep. And Hackstall did mention Bjorkstrand after the game and said, look, like, he's playing well. He's doing the right things. Once he gets one, they're going to keep coming. And I agree, just given the way he's playing. But that's something that the coach notices. And so, look, it's only a matter of time here. He got one this season, hasn't got the next one. But once he does, the goals are going to follow.
Yeah, I talked about it earlier. Like, when you see those numbers, you realize all of that going on. It's hard not to bring up it's hard not to end to think of Donskoy just a little bit. You just can't help it. It's right there. Let's see. Brian just coming in with the super chat here. Last year we lost at the New York Rangers with under a minute to go. So bummed to not get 1 point tonight. So bummed we got 1 point. That's progress. It is. I think Brian makes a good point there.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing you notice too is really since the Vegas and Carolina games, even the losses have been largely by 1 goal. The Kraken just are not getting blown out this season. They're in every single game. And you got to think of ways back to their last loss that wasn't by 1 goal. So I think that's a good sign, and certainly just about this team being better. And as disappointing as this game is, you still get a point out of it. It's still half a win.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's very important because this would feel so much more devastating, like how it happened, if that wasn't the case. You know what I mean? Like,
and I will say, in the second intermission, I went over and talked to someone in the press box, and I said, because I think the game was tied 1-1 at that point, and the Kraken were coming off kind of a bad second period. I said, if they can just get a point out of this, get to overtime, whatever happens, you got to feel okay about it. I didn't foresee what happening.
RJ, you spoke it into existence.
I shouldn't have said that just now.
You ever want to see somebody just self-incriminate themselves? That's what it looks like right there, everybody. No. Yeah, I agree though. I understand where you were coming from, and I totally understand that. And I do think that it's improvement for the Kraken that they can battle and stay in games, and they're do what they did tonight. And good on Tanev for getting that go ahead goal in the third, and everything that they were doing, hitting as many posts as they hit, right? Like this game could have been well out of reach for Winnipeg if you just get a little bit luckier on some of those. So
Yep.
it is all good stuff. Just got a couple rough games coming up here. This is not a easy schedule to look at moving forward, at least not till we get to that San Jose game.
Yeah, it's a tough stretch, but hey, that's where the Kraken have thrived this season. They play up to their opponents.
They really do. They really do. And Scott kind of echoing those things here. I will take any points I can get. Back in the day, teams would scrape to get into overtime after playing their hearts out and then lose, or they would dump it. This point system is way better nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly is on nights like tonight. I know you might not agree with it all the time, but I think it's fine. Let's see. Yeah, so there's some talking here about the overall point system and everything. Let's see. I'm just trying to find some stuff that isn't just like all about Susie or about Burakovsky. Like there's just a lot of that all through here. You know what I mean?
Understandable.
What'd you think? I felt like this was McCann's like kind of first game back where he like totally looked like himself. Man, that shot on that one power plate was a laser beam right to the post.
I know it was, and I was good to see McCann back to largely himself after he did not look right in the last game. That was something we talked about a lot in post game, that he just didn't look like himself. But I think he looked a lot better in this one. Just kind of needed that one game to settle back in, and looks good on the Beniers line too.
Yeah, for sure. Got Coop here. Hey, on a positive side, before this past week, I wasn't sure Eberle was ever going to score again, and he's finally gotten hot again. That is true. Eberle getting things going with a power play goal at the beginning of this one. That was definitely nice to see.
Yeah, and on brand, it just feels like it's kind of coming in bunches again, and then he puts another puck into the net. It was definitely a high stick, but you can tell he's feeling it. And that sneaky little feed to Matty Beniers too, later in the period, that springs Beniers on like a little, mini breakaway almost from the face-off dots. That's just a great pass and the sign of a confident player.
Yeah. All right. So I haven't done this yet. I pulled up all the game stats here to talk about them. Kraken won face-offs again, so time to put back on our tinfoil hats, everybody. Winning the face-off game means losing. Winning that battle, you lose the war. That's what the conclusion. That's the only conclusion we can draw from these last two games, right? There's that. The PK, 16 of 16 in their last 6 games, I believe it was, or 19 of 19 for the last 6. I forget what the graphic was at the beginning of the game. Point is, they've been perfect for a long time now. Coming into this one, I feel really good escaping this game, killing off 5 of the 7 penalties, 5 of the 7 power plays.
When you put the other team on the power play that often, you're playing with fire, and you're going to need your PK to come up big. And for a large part, they did. That's a game that you look at last season. You take those kind of penalties, you play with that kind of lack of discipline. I think the Kraken give up 3 or 4 goals because of it, and you're just out of the game, completely out of the game. And their PK did a lot better in response to it tonight.
Yeah. What did you think of that kind of second period tussle, dust up, whatever you want to call it, that whole situation? Eddie was very critical of how the refs and linesmen handled that overall situation. And I got to say, I'm kind of right there with them.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, it was such a large clump of players in such a small area. I think they had the chance to diffuse it look, Burakovsky was the guy that the Jets were going after. There was a clear kind of target there. And they didn't really do enough to kind of separate him from the play and get everyone out of there. And so that's what led to it becoming what it did. And then it hit a certain momentum where at that point, there's nothing you can do to stop it. Once Wheeler is grabbing Borgen by the back of the jersey and trying to haul him out of the pile, there's nothing the linesman can do at that point. Everybody's just going to find their dance partner, which really all 5 skaters found someone to lock up with. And at that point, there's nothing you can do. But I think it's a good observation from Edzo there. There's probably a little more you can do to diffuse that earlier on. From an entertainment standpoint, man, just watching Will Borgen and Blake Wheeler go at it, some Minnesota on Minnesota violence there. That was interesting to see. I mean, they're both big, strong guys. What a battle.
Yeah, it was. You could hear the crowd, we'll just say, through the broadcast loud and clear. Felt like everybody was really into it. But yeah, I thought like Lowry gets in there kind of early on and gets right into the thick of it. And no one really stops him from getting at Burakovsky. And then, yeah, Wheeler just comes in like a missile or something. Just he's like shot out of a cannon into it all. And that's when things just really go crazy. And I just, I've been critical in the past of how these things are handled by the on ice officials, right? The idea that it's up to the two linesmen to somehow control 10 grown men all trying to get in each other's faces, right? And that maybe that's not like the best solution to things like this all the time. But I will say, I saw for the first time in a long time, one of the two refs was in there trying to pull people apart. So I'll give the refs that one tonight.
Yep.
I'll give them that
credit
one.
there. And yeah, I mean, going back to just the officiating as a whole real quick, I will say this is the only game I remember from my season and a little bit of covering this team where after the game, Hackstall was kind of point blank asked, like, and I think it was phrased like this: "Look, I'm not trying to get you in trouble, but like, were there any calls tonight that you felt, maybe might have been a little bit suspect?" So I think that the question kind of says a little bit there.
It does a little bit, yeah. People have definitely talked about it in here, thrown some statistics around from some websites that might keep track of that sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's been talked about. It's been talked about. Looking ahead at the schedule, I kind of how do you want the Kraken to respond to this one? Because I've been kind of struggling to think of that. It's kind of hard when you're hosting the post game to totally get all your thoughts together. But you've got like a whole week almost off to try to prepare for this next one, get right. Kind of what is something you'd like to maybe see from them this week during practices before these big time games against two good teams?
Yeah, I'd like to see them, I guess, work on some of their coordination down low, maybe even a little like forechecking, types of drills, which we haven't really seen since training camp. They've kept it pretty light as far as the practices and that's concerned. And I get it because it's a grind over the course of the season. Like, it's difficult. You want to keep everyone's bodies fresh, especially with how many games they had early on. But with this chance, you've got 2 potential practice days. You can use that first one to maybe get a little bit more intense than you otherwise would. And I'd like to see that from them because I think it really helped when they got that in training camp. And maybe just kind of a really hard reset day. I mean, heck, maybe even hopefully the coach isn't listening or whatever. I don't want the players to hate me. Maybe even end it with a bag skate, just a short one. But something like that, just kind of like a reset day on, what would that be?
Tuesday?
Whatever.
Probably?
Yeah, Tuesday. That first of the 2 practice days that they could have. I mean, Dylan, what do you want to see? I know you haven't had a ton of time to think about it, but is there anything you had in mind?
Yeah, I thought of it while you were answering, and I do kind of agree with you. I think the emphasis needs to be on offense. I'd like to see him work on the power play. You're 1 for 8 now in these last 2 games, and I feel like that's kind of been the difference. They've both been low-scoring affairs, right? Jones has been keeping you in these games. Got to reward him with some help. You're drawing penalties, right? In fact, you went 0 for 4 against Minnesota. You went 1 for 4 tonight. Got to start capitalizing on those chances, and I feel like their power play, just watching these last 2 games, has not looked right. They're not getting the puck movement that they were getting before. Remember, I mean, like that was something that was like that breath of fresh air. You really felt like this team was different from last season because they were moving the puck on the power play. They were creating chances. They were setting up one-timers, or really they weren't relying on just setting up one-timers. They were doing other things. And these last 2 games, it's just felt very stagnant and basic and kind of boring.
I think that would be a very proactive approach, and I think that's a good idea. I agree with that. And in the past, when asked about the power play struggling in a particular game, Hackstall's always kind of leaned back on, like, look, our power play's been great all year, and he's right. It has, it has been. And usually the next game they bounce back and they look really good. But this is the first time I can recall since the team started turning it around and winning that it's looked bad, really kind of bad, for 2 games in a row. And even the 5-on-3 I felt looked pretty uninspired before the eventual goal. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of just waiting with the puck. Nobody was on the right proper side for one-timers.
There wasn't a sense of urgency. And 5-on-3, that's the time for urgency. Like, if there ever is one. And I felt the same when after that big dust up in the second period, you've got a 4-minute power play. And they got 1 shot, I think, the entire time. Like, that's kind of inexcusable. Like, you got to do better than that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge potential turning point in that game. I mean, just from that dust up, the potential momentum to be gained, and it was ultimately wasted. So yeah, I think power play practice, would be a good idea. And of course, I'll be, reporting from those practices.
Yep.
So I'll let you know what they do, and everyone continue to follow us on social media.
Yeah, social media, and remember, if you're a member of the Patreon, you get those practice recap videos RJ puts out after every single Kraken practice, so you can really kind of hear all the ins and outs of what went on that day. Just gonna plug that one. Another shout out to Queen Anne Beer Hall over there, I guess, for me. There we go. RJ took care of it. Good one there. I like this from Alex earlier in the post game. We're gonna steal it, RJ. It was something like at Queen Anne Beer Hall, the beers play the full 60. I like that.
Hey, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good one. And hey, man, talk about playing the full 60 with a whole day today. You could have gone there at 5, at 6 a.m. to go watch the Seahawks game, stayed all the way until now. You keep going, honestly. But you could spend the full day there with some great sports. Seahawks couldn't get it done. I guess Kraken couldn't get it done either, but still a fun day if you went to Queen Anne Beer Hall.
I was gonna say it might not have been the overall most choice, and hopefully, if anybody did do that, hopefully you stayed hydrated, drank some water between all that too. Just gonna throw that one out there for anybody going anywhere, even staying at home. Just have a little water between each drink. It really helps out. Okay, let's close it off talking about the one kind of big thing that we haven't touched on throughout this whole post game, even before you joined, RJ. And I feel like it was kind of a big deal. And we should probably talk about it. And that was the reverse retro jerseys. Kind of amazing how a game can make us all kind of forget that one. I saw the comment here from Edward. Reverse retros did look pretty sweet out there on the ice. They did indeed. I thought they looked really good. Kind of your thoughts first. How was the reaction to them in the arena?
Almost universally positive.
Awesome.
Up in the press box and around the arena, and I'm glad I chose to do this. I actually went down into that corner for warm-ups, right on the glass through one of the tunnels, and so I got an up-close look at the jerseys. Got to take some up-close photos. If you follow us on Twitter or Instagram, you'll have seen those, and they just look gorgeous in person. The colors that ice blue, it just pops in a way that a photo can't really capture. So yeah, I just love how these jerseys look on the ice. I think they look better in person than in photos, and they look better on the ice than off the ice. So I thought the Kraken looked great. Looking over at the bench, seeing just kind of the ice blue tops of the jerseys all along the bench, it looked awesome. And I like the numbers too. The numbers are have really grown on me too in that spot, like the fonts and everything.
Yeah, it's very visible. Like, exactly who you're looking at, and that's a big deal, I think, for something like this. When you kind of have that two-tone pattern on it, that can sometimes be a little tricky. But I like really, to be honest, with the front crest, like when it's back full game view on TV, that was a little tougher to see. But the numbers looked fantastic. Definitely agree with you there. When it comes to the overall look of it, the one thing that the only thing I was worried about in this game answered it completely was I worried about, okay, what happens when they wear them at home and you have a visiting team coming in wearing a very white jersey? How does the light blue from above look next to the white? Yeah. Is it easy to distinguish between the two? And it was. It is saturated
no
enough.
Confusion whatsoever.
Yep, it is saturated enough. There is no confusion. I absolutely love that because I love that color blue. I think it is absolutely stunning. It's different enough from the ice as well. That was another kind of secret concern I had. I didn't want to bring up was like, oh no, are they going to blend into the ice? Is the on TV or the whole like board ads going to start confusing them as board, and is that going to be an issue? You know what I mean, right? Like I don't know how they key that out. I don't know what the technology is going on there. And there was zero issues with that.
Yeah, none whatsoever. I mean, credit to the board ad algorithm. I don't want to give credit to that. But yes, the jerseys look great.
Yeah, I agree. And that was pretty cool. I thought they looked fantastic. I'm really, really pleased with them. And yeah, they look stunning. And I just, the other thing was, how was all the like kind of in arena graphics? Because we saw some people posting before the game that like they had some different stuff. Did that continue through the whole game?
Yes, it did continue through the whole game. It was kind of like this retro theme night, and I thought they did a really good job of that. I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted to mention it. They had kind of the old style scoreboard, which I think you probably saw the pictures of. They had, all the graphics and the rings around the arena, everything was like retro themed. They had like an 80s like an 80s new wave band that they had as the house band tonight. So you had like all the old 80s hits and everything. It really felt like a total retro night.
That's awesome. I'm sure we'll hear more from it about it tomorrow on the deep dive.
Oh yeah.
Definitely have some questions there for it. I think we'll go ahead and close that off there. I see some people talking still about the idea of a Metropolitans based jersey. Definitely think they're saving those. Agree with Ty. And then yeah, there is a potential licensing issue. It's kind of unclear even to us what's totally going on there. So.
Yep.
All right, so I think that's going to do it for this post game live, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks. I said it before, RJ, yes, it was an overtime loss, but I felt like this one kind of had to be a true therapy session.
Yeah.
It's just kind of how it was. Certainly right away when things started off, it was still so fresh and raw, but we made it through. We're all here smiling at the end, talking about how awesome the retro jerseys are. That is what makes this so special, is that we all get to work through it and we all get to come out of it together. And it's only because we're all together that really gets to happen, the fact that we all get to be talking. So I do want to thank everybody who is here sincerely. Like, you help us just as much as it feels like we're helping you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Big thank you to the community for everyone showing up to watch this. Like, especially a game like tonight's, like, that's what this is for. Yeah, I mean, big thank you to everyone, and a big thank you to Queen Anne Beer Hall too.
Yep.
For being a part of that community and helping make this possible.
Yeah, really recognizing that community, wanting to help be a part of it. That's absolutely awesome from them. And yeah, you just got to talk out those feelings sometimes. It's healthy. It really is. So thanks everybody for joining us for this one. Like I said, deep dive tomorrow. Got that prospect chat coming up on Wednesday on the Patreon. Got very special release, the fans coming out sometime the next couple days too, that everyone should be looking forward to. So lots of fun stuff while we wait for that next Kraken game. And yeah, we'll see you all next time.